The Woods of Woodford, Chapter 7. Whoa, Billy, you weren't kidding. This is cool. How did you find it? Bob asked. I was just out exploring earlier and I came across it. This is awesome and I knew you would like it too. I sure do. Does anybody live here? Are you kidding me? Billy asked, surprised that Bob would even think to ask such a question. Look at this place. It has been abandoned for quite some time. Bob looked it over quickly. He could easily see that Billy was right. It looked like something right out of a spooky Halloween movie. Vines were growing all up the walls. The porch, although still standing, was obviously sagging toward the middle. The porch did not look safe, but that didn't stop Billy from climbing all over it. If there was one thing about Billy that Bob admired, it was his fearlessness. He never seemed to be scared of anything. Of course, we know this can be a good thing or a bad thing. Courage is a quality to be admired. However, being unafraid to do things which were wrong, which Billy had constantly displayed in the past, is very foolish. As Billy was on the porch, Bob decided to try a window to see what he could see of the inside. This proved to be all but useless. Outside they had the moonlight, but the inside of this cabin was pitch dark. He could barely make out shapes of things that were on the inside. If only he had a flashlight. The fear that his parents would discover he was gone was now something he had forgotten all about. The cabin was cool, and he was curious as to what was inside, but he didn't want to get in trouble either. Bob, Billy called from the front of the cabin. Come help me. Bob went around and found Billy on the dangerous-looking porch. He had lowered his shoulder and was pushing against the front door, and it wasn't budging. What are you doing? Bob asked in amazement. I'm trying to get this door open. Don't you want to go inside? I don't know. While it was true that Bob was extremely curious about this place, and he wanted to know what was inside, going inside seemed a little scary, especially in the dark. Don't you think we should come back in the day when it isn't so dark? Bob, you kill me, Billy said in his mature-sounding way. Are you seriously scared? Besides, you're grounded. How are we going to sneak out of your house during the day when your parents are awake? That would never work. I'm not scared, Bob lied. I just thought it would be easier to see what we're doing if we have light. This sounded sensible, but then again, so had Billy's argument. He was right. The only chance he may have for a long time to see what was inside this cabin could be now. He climbed up on the porch. The boards creaked with every step as he cautiously made his way over to where Billy stood. With every step he took, he half expected a board to break and his foot to fall through, but he made it safely. This door is tough, Billy explained. It hasn't moved much at all, but I think if we both push at the same time, we might be able to get it. Bob lowered his shoulder next to Billy, and the two boys began to push. It did move a little, but not much at all. They tried again, and again it moved a bit, but not much. They paused for a break. It feels like there's something on the other side of the door, Billy said. Did you see something in there when you looked in the window? No. It's so dark I couldn't see anything in there. But you are right. There has to be something on the other side. And whatever it is, it's heavy. Let's try again. The boys began pushing with all of their might. It moved more this time than it had the other tries, but still wasn't very much at all. The door was now open wide enough that had they had a light, they would have been able to see through to get a glimpse of whatever was in the room behind, or was in the room beyond. I think we might be able to squeeze through, Billy said. That is, if we go one at a time. Now, Bob didn't like this. Who knows what was in there, and if it was safe. He did not want to let on that he was scared, though. He felt like he needed to act brave to keep Billy's respect. Now, a real friend would not try to force someone to do something they did not want to do. But as we have already stated, Billy was not a very good friend. I'll go first, Billy said. Before Bob had a chance to argue, Billy had stuck his right leg through the opening. He used his hands to push with all of his might to make sure that he had enough room as possible to get in. He squeezed through. Now it was Bob's turn. He wanted to delay this as long as he possibly could. Billy, he said through the opening, are you okay? Is there enough room for me to get in, you think? Yes, Billy responded. Now stop stalling and get in here. Bob took a deep breath and started toward the opening. Just before he could start through, he jumped at the sound of Billy, who had let out a yell in the cabin. The door slammed shut. The next morning, school resumed as usual. The classroom had been cleaned, some desks had been scrubbed, and the place smelled normal once again. Frank had arrived to school at his normal time, which was pretty early. His mom and dad both worked, so they would drop him off and wait in the gym with some of the other students who were early comers. They waited at the lunch tables. This was the time when many of the students would eat breakfast or study for their tests. Frank was doing neither that morning. He had other plans. His plan was to get back at Bobob, and he knew just how to do it. The morning had not been so pleasant, as he had been dropped off by his father. He usually loved to spend time with his dad. They could talk about anything. They'd talk about sports, school stuff, anything else that might come up. He and his father had a pretty good relationship, but when he was in trouble, it wasn't so good. He usually knew that once he apologized and made things right, things would get back to normal, but this time, he wasn't sure how to handle it. What would he apologize for? He hadn't done anything. This made him all the more angry with Bobob. Today, he was going to get him. His opportunity was quickly approaching. On most days, he didn't care how long it took for the teacher to come and collect the students and bring them to class. The longer it took for school to start, the better was usually how he felt. But he was excited because he was going to pull this off. He was going to have to work quickly. He had it all mapped out in his mind how it would work. He knew that he was always in the classroom before Bobob and Gretchen. He was counting on this to be true today, and so far it was. The teacher was on her way. Frank and the handful of other students who were at school early lined up and were heading to the classroom. There was no sign of Bobob or Gretchen. The plan was working. They got to the room and began to quietly unpack their things while keeping Miss Northton in the corner of his eye. He had to make sure she was not paying too close attention if this was going to work. Luckily, she was going about her morning business, writing things on the chalkboard and looking through papers. The other students were all busy minding their own businesses as well, unpacking and such. The time to act was now. Gretchen's seat was in the row next to his, and he leaned over and conspicuously snatched her pencil box. Looking around again, he made sure nobody had noticed, and they had not. He opened the box and placed the special delivery inside. After closing the box, he put it back under Gretchen's desk. He sat up in his seat as if he were ready for school. His pencils had not been sharpened or anything, but he didn't care. No, he was as happy as could be. He just sat there and smiled. The time for school came closer and closer. Frank's happiness started to turn into worry. So far, everything had happened as he had suspected, but things took a turn for the worse. Bobob usually arrived to the classroom a good 5 minutes before Gretchen. The time he usually got there came, and Frank did not see him. This could spell disaster, but it still may be okay. It would be okay as long as Bobob got there before Gretchen. Frank then heard the dreaded words. "Good morning, Gretchen," Miss Northton said in her pleasing manner. This was not pleasing to Frank at all. He started to feel warm in his face. He could be in trouble here. School started, and there was no Bobob. In fact, Bobob did not make it to school at all that day. And come to think of it, Billy was absent from his school as well. And that's the end of the chapter. If you're one of the ones who is wanting to compete in the drawing contest for the next chapter, what we're looking for chapter 8 is a picture of a snobby little bratty girl with a mean look on her face. So if you'd like to email that to me, perhaps we can use that for chapter 8. All right, thank you for listening, and we will see you next time.